Right, so this is merely the amuse-bouche then?
Say again?
This is merely the amuse-bouche, the starter.
Yeah, hopefully.
We got it done in 45 days, certainly, because we work for Donald Trump.
Well, we're going to get the UK perspective in just a moment with Lord Simon MacDonald. But first, let's hear from Stephen Moore, who's Senior Economic Advisor to President Trump 2016 campaign and who co-authored the Heritage Foundation's Project 2025's chapter on the Department of the Treasury. Good afternoon, Stephen.
Good afternoon.
Well, you heard Howard Lutnick there saying how great this was for America, this deal. So is it a better deal for America than it is for the UK?
I think it's a good deal for both countries, frankly. Yeah, I'm a free trade guy. I'm not a big fan. I am a fan of Donald Trump's, but I'm not a big fan of tariffs. And I do think that if countries can de-escalate and reduce their tariffs, it's good for both countries by definition. And so I think this is going to be positive for Britain. I think it'll be positive for the United States. And I think it's also going to the fact that the UK is sort of first in line to make a deal here, I think puts Britain in a really strategic position. And we're hoping that what this will do is cause a lot of other countries from India to Canada to the Europeans to Japan to come to the table as well. We'll see if those deals are going to be hatched, but this was a really big, good first start. And by the way, the stock market really reacted very positively to that in both countries.
Well, you're being very diplomatic, and we'll come back to some of those other deals in different countries in a second. But, you know, the opposition leader in this country, Kemi Badenoch, said that the UK got shafted. I can tell from your language you're not going to use language like that. But is that nevertheless the case, that this is not good for the UK?
Well, look, I think that if you're lowering your tariffs on American products, that's a good thing for British consumers. It means your prices are going to fall and you're going to have access to more products. So I'm not so sure.
Except we've still got blanket 10% tariffs, haven't we? So we're still worse off than before this whole trade war started.
True, and that's a valid point. But it's also true that you know, there's a lot of barriers that are placed on American exports to Britain, and then those have been unfair. And that's one of the reasons Donald Trump won the election, is Americans felt like there was not a level playing field. But I really believe, and I think ultimately Trump believes this too, that we should have a free trade agreement with the UK. I mean, we have a special relationship, obviously, between the United States and the United Kingdom. And I'd love to see something where we both went to zero on our tariffs. And that's something Trump, I think, would be very open-minded to if the British would be.
Right. So this is merely the amuse-bouche then?
Say again?
This is merely the amuse-bouche, the starter?
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, I think it would be a great thing if, look, I think ultimately Donald Trump's goal here, and I think this should be the goal of the British citizens and the people of Europe, is to try to decouple the world economy from the evil empire. And of course, that's China. And China is, you know, engaged in very predatory trade practices. They are building up their military in a very aggressive and hostile and dangerous way. With respect to American products, I can't say with respect to British products, they steal our patents. They are not, you know, they're basically copycatting our products and then selling them abroad. So I think it would be a good thing if we could get all the countries of the world to have, you know, more freer trade, and then really isolate China because they've become a communist country, and that's really dangerous for all citizens of the rest of the world.
Right. Well, you talked about other countries now, and you hope that other deals will be signed with countries around the world. And you also described yourself as a free trade kind of guy. So how rapidly, in your view, does Trump need to get other deals signed in order to protect the US economy? You know, how worried are you about this hit to the economy from this trade war that's been started by the man you support?
Well, that's a very great question. How fast do we have to get these done? Because there's no question the American economy is taking a bit of a hit here. I talked to manufacturers and people who run, construction firms and so on, and there's no question that business has slowed down as a result of these what I call the tariff turmoil. And so I think the only way I can answer your question is to say the sooner the better. And that's why I slept like a baby last night when I heard that this deal had been cut, because I think it's the first of many, and then we can get back to a freer and fairer trading system that benefits everybody around the world. So it's a big first start. It was a big day for Trump and I think the Brits.
Right. Well, finally, just on a very different subject, we've got the first American Pope. You yourself are a Catholic. Do you think that Pope Leo XIV will be an advocate of conservatism?
I'm sorry, say that again. I missed the first part of that.
We're talking about the new Pope, first American Pope. You're a Catholic yourself.
Oh, the Pope.
Yeah, a switch of subject. Sorry about that. From trade to Pope.
Yes.
Spiritual trade.
You threw at me there. But I got to tell you, I am from Chicago, so we're just thrilled. Not only do we have an American Pope, but we have a Pope from my hometown of Chicago. So there's a lot of pride in that. I'm very hopeful that he will be another Pope John Paul II. I was not a big fan of Pope Francis, but I think that we need to, have real traditional values being expressed by the Pope, and a leader of peace and hopefully prosperity. But it's a great day for America that we have this first American Pope, and I think he will be very much a traditionalist.
Really, because he's taken on J.D. Vance in the past, hasn't he? Quite recently, in the last few weeks. So you're convinced that he's more traditionalist than perhaps some of the media have him down as?
Well, frankly, I'm still finding out a lot about this new Pope. I mean, I'm just reading now I didn't know a lot about him until this announcement was made. So it's a little premature for me to make any judgments. I think he was criticizing, was it Vance? Was it about immigration? I forget what the policy was that he was.
He was quibbling. Well, J.D. Vance had talked about Catholicism, looking after itself first and then considering other people, and he quibbled with that and said, Jesus teaches us to look after everybody.
It's interesting because it's a really great point. The purpose of the Pope is to really look out for the welfare of all citizens of the world, no question about it. The purpose of American president or the British Prime Minister is just as our president needs to put America's interest first. Your prime minister should put Britain first. And so they have different objectives. But I do think when we put America first, that helps the rest of the world. And we will see. I hope that's a good relationship President Trump has with this new Pope.
Right. Well, you're very diplomatic. I'm sure some might disagree with you on putting America first and what that means for the rest of the world. But Stephen Moore, thank you very much for joining us on Times Radio.